Fort Ord is incredibly beautiful. You have the ocean on one side, and then you have the rolling hills and then the mountains behind. Frankly, I felt so lucky to be there.
Here at Fort Ord, California, is where the combinations of men, tactics, equipment, and organization, the Army's options for the future, are brought together.
Today, the sprawling former Army base in California is home to a national monument, a state park, a university, and million-dollar homes. But those who lived or worked at the military installation wonder if the base could have made them sick.
I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, bone marrow cancer, which was a complete and total shock.
In 1990, the Environmental Protection Agency designated Fort Ord as a Superfund site, one of the nation's worst hazardous waste sites. The base closed in 1994, but it was still used for government housing.
I was there in 96 and 97. It would have been nice to know. Would have been nice to have like water filtration or bottled water, or not to plant vegetable gardens.
Julie Akey is a former soldier who later worked for the State Department as a linguist. She started having health issues while stationed in Colombia in 2016. When she was diagnosed with cancer, Akey thought about her time at Fort Ord. She wanted to know if anyone else had gotten sick after living at a Superfund site.
Why isn't the military tracking this? Why am I tracking this?
Currently, more than 130 military bases and installations are listed as Superfund sites. But hundreds more have known contaminations.
They use a lot of very toxic chemicals in order to do those exercises. Those exercises range from shooting bullets for target practicing all the way to putting out giant fires with very toxic chemicals. And so the soil is incredibly contaminated, including lead, PFAS, organic volatile compounds, and TCE, which is one of those chemicals.
Despite its toxic legacy, the U.S. military has rarely acknowledged a connection between where service members lived and their illnesses.
There's many aspects of epidemiology that become very difficult to prove a cause and effect.
I applied for VA benefits. Denied. And I asked the others who I had contact with, have you had any success? Denied.
The Department of Veterans Affairs has only recognized one base, Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, for having a presumptive link between contaminated water and several illnesses for Marines and their families stationed there between 1953 and 1987.
The same toxins were found in the water and in the soil. And we're looking at the same diseases. Like multiple myeloma, my cancer, it's recognized if I were at Camp Lejeune.
The tough question, and almost the moral and ethical question, is if you know there is exposure there that increased risk and you have an adverse outcome, do you really need to prove it?
In a memo reviewed by the Associated Press, Fort Ord officials had become concerned about high levels of chemicals in 1985, including trichloroethylene, or TCE. Former mechanic Kurt Gandy tried to sound the alarm.
I knew it was wrong. I knew we were breaking California environmental laws. And when I brought this up to my supervisors and tried to follow the chain of command as they tell you to do in the Army.
What I have seen personally firsthand in that area, my question...
They didn't want to hear it. They were telling me to sit down and shut up, but I didn't know what I was talking about. This whole field, this whole enclosure here was filled with 55-gallon barrels on racks of toluene, starter solvent, xylene, jet fuel, and they'd pull the central plug on the helicopter and drain all the jet fuel right into the grass in the storm drainage system.
The U.S. Army, then and now, maintains the water at Fort Ord was safe.
In 1996, there was a health assessment that was done to evaluate public health impacts, not only currently in 96, but also did look back. And in that health assessment, they did identify some drinking water impacts. However, they were brief. They made the determination based on the amount of time and the lower levels that they saw that there was not likely a public health effect as a result.
But in the 25 years since that study, the dangers and health impacts of exposure to TCE and other chemicals have become more widely known. There have been no additional studies at Fort Ord.
It is the most pervasive groundwater contaminant throughout our country. And if you throw it onto the ground or into the ground, it will get into the groundwater and stays there for decades. There's a full range of effects on the body. It circulates in the body real effectively when you breathe it or drink it. It's related strongly to kidney cancer, the development of kidney cancers, and suspected in several other cancers.
The VA says it is pivoting to a new model of determining whether certain illnesses were caused by military environmental exposures, but did not provide details on how the claims would be evaluated. Fort Ord has undergone extensive remediation efforts, but the groundwater contamination cleanup continues.
The fact that they're cleaning it up is definitely a good thing, but it begs more questions, right? We need to ask at what level and then what's left.
For Aki, the one question she can't shake is, did Fort Ord play a role in her cancer?
I found so many people that are sick. I found a woman who lived just across the street from where I lived, and she has myeloma as well. She's a vet, and she was there a few years earlier, but how coincidental is that? I don't think it's a coincidence. I could be wrong, but I have no other explanation.